morning. I don't know what the weather's like by your house, but here we have rain, thunder, and lightning. Diego's not a fan of lightning or thunder. They both terrify him. So he's on the lookout. If he sees it, he might be leaving. But he said he'd join us for a little bit until he gets scared. And now he's scared. Oh, he can still hear the story though. He's sitting underneath the table hiding in his safe from lightning and thunder spot. Good? Okay. Alright, let's continue our story and move and see what setback the kids have. After spending a morning over at Birchmire Farm, where Beat and Zepp let us help as they trained and groomed their cows, we returned to Mrs. Falala's, eager to practice what we'd learned. No sign of Mrs. Falala when we arrived, but Polly the pig was snorting in a mud hole behind the barn, and the parrot was squawking from the barn roof. The fat cat stood watch over a bush, its head darting left and right, tracking something. No sign of the snake. Zora was standing in the shade beside her favorite bush on the far side of the pasture. I wondered if Zora got tired standing all day. Was she bored? Was she lonely? What did she think about? "Hey, Zora," I called. "I'm back. Did you miss me?" We climbed the fence rails and dropped to the other side and crossed the pasture. It wasn't until we were within 5 feet of her that she suddenly let out a loud, bellowing moo, startling us so much we stopped in our tracks. "Zora?" And another loud, belligerent, bellowing moo. And with that, she turned around and butted Luke with her enormous head and knocked him to the ground. She then butted her head at me, knocking me backward. Moo. She swung that big head from side to side and turned her back to us and moved off. You know you like my moves. We tried once more to approach her, but she whipped her head around, swished her tail like a whip, butted me in the stomach, and bellowed angrily. Moo. Moo. There's lots of moves. Moo. Luke had attached himself to my arm. "Come on, Rena, let's go back to the barn. Please, Rena, please." We stepped slowly away from Zora, backtracking across the pasture, keeping our eyes on her the whole way. When we reached the barn, Mrs. Falala was standing in the open doorway. "So," she said, "how's your little Zora friend today? Not so friendly?" Mucking about. I was mucking out Zora's stall, scooping up manure, patties, and dumping them in the wheelbarrow. Luke and Mrs. Falala were sitting side by side on a hay bale, with their notebooks open, when Luke drew, his small hand moved fast, his pen gliding across the white paper. When Mrs. Falala drew, her gnarly hand crept along slowly, so very, very slowly. For 3 days, she had been drawing the head of a cow. At least that is what I thought she was drawing, but there was not enough of it to be sure. Luke's lines flowed smoothly. There were moments in the figures. Mrs. Falala's lines were stiff. Maybe the cow was dead. Color. Along the roads, the lumping lines grew tall spears of color, pink and white and blue, and beyond lay vast carpets of buttercups, and up and down the roads we rode our bikes. "Hello, lupines. Hello, buttercups. Hello, Maine. We love you." Bugs. What were these tiny black things that flew into our eyes and ears and zipped up your sleeves and down your socks and bit you? They were not mosquitoes. They were barely visible, but when the day was still, when the wind was calm, these tiny black bugs swarmed a bit, and then you itched. We were covered with red welts, and we scratched all day long. Bodily fluids. One day I succeeded in haltering Zora and was trying to comb her with the sturdy metal comb that Mrs. Falala had shoved into my hands when we arrived. I thought Zora might like the feel of the comb through her fur, and for a few minutes it seemed that she did. And then I hit a snag, a tangled, matted knot of hair, and pulled hard, and that big head swung toward me and knocked me against my arm, scolding me as a wide swath of mucus dripped out of her nose and down my sleeve. Her wet, slobbery tongue slapped against my wrist. She lifted her tail, unleashing a wide, steamy stream of urine splashing, my pants and my boots. Oh, that's good, Luke called from the fence. I'm going to draw that. About that time, along came Polly the pig. He dashed toward and beneath Zora, who kicked at him, and missing him, Zora got me instead. That pig. What good is that pig? I yelled. Mrs. Falala poked her head out of the barn and said, Polly, he's part of family. What if someone asked your mama, what good are you? Lonely. On my bike, riding to Mrs. Falala's, Luke ahead of me, bobbing his head and singing a song he made up as he pedaled. Gonna ride, ride, gonna fly, fly, gonna zip, zip. And I felt lucky that Luke was with me and I wasn't wandering this new town alone. I don't know if any of you do that when you ride your bike or when you're out doing things. Just sing a little made-up song. I do it. My wife catches me doing it all the time. Except I like to put my name in my song in replace of words. It's very fun. Right, babe? She's obviously nodding yes and ignoring me. Hello? Hello? Are you alive? We pulled into Mrs. Falala's drive, stashed our bikes, and put on our work clothes, and found Zora still in her stall, standing against the rail, her head hanging low, and something popped in my chest, sending bubbles floating up to my brain. Luke, I said, Zora's lonely. Aw, Luke said. Aw, poor Zora. I entered the stall and approached Zora slowly. Gently I stroked her neck. You're lonely, aren't you, girl? Zora moved her head toward me. She rested her head against my arm. That day I told Mrs. Falala that Zora was lonely, that Zora needed company, that she must be very sad to be all alone. Mrs. Falala mashed her lips together and said, Zora is not alone. I am here. Polly the pig is here. So is cat, so is parrot, so is Edna snake. I said, but there are no other cows. No one for her to lean against. No one for her to talk to. Mrs. Falala said nothing. She turned around and walked back to the house, that long white braid swinging slowly left to right. Fog. Down to the harbor, early one Saturday morning, Mom and Dad and me and Luke, before the tourists swarmed, before the stores opened, soft gray fog hovered over the water, masking the moored boats. We climbed down to the small stretch of beach, seaweed and mussel shells splayed across the rocks. Fish smell and salt air, mast creaks and rope jangles. As we stood there, the fog rose slowly, surely, revealing first the hulls and then the masts of wooden vessels. Their sails rolled into cocoons, and lobster boats were wave rolling and red, blue, yellow buoys bobbing. My mother said, oh, did you ever see anything like that, ever in your life? And I was thinking that I never saw anything like everything I was seeing, never saw anything like those everythings ever in my life. Sometimes I had to close my eyes to rest them from all the new everythings pouring in. Dreams. At night, I dreamed of Zora and her wide, furry body and her giant head and her huge black eyes. And in the dreams, I combed her and talked with her, and she was warm and comforting. And I smelled the sawdust in her stall and felt the softness of her fur. And in the dream, she talked to me. She said, yes, I am lonely. Yes, I am. So I stroked her and combed her and told her that I would find some company for her. Ooh. All right, we'll read one more chapter. Plans. I was nervous, but I geared up my courage and talked first to Beat and Zep and then to the owners of the Birchmire farm. I wasn't afraid they would laugh at me. Oh, I was afraid that they would laugh at me, but they didn't. Of course, they said. She needs to be around other cows. Of course. They said that I could bring Zora to their farm where there was plenty of room and plenty of other cows as long as I took care of her. Zora comes from a long line of grand champions, Mr. Birch said. Did you know that? No, I did not. And she should show well as long as you can keep that temper of hers under control. Beat and Zep would help me train Zora. Beat and Zep would help me train Zora, and they would train me too, so that I would know how to show Zora at the fair. A long line of grand champions. That sounded impressive, didn't it? It sounded like a perfect plan, right? we'll have to find out tomorrow if it is a perfect plan. I like it though. I like how she's trying to get Zora some friends. I hope she figures out what makes Zora so grumpy sometimes and helps her become happy. Because I like happy cows. I'll see you next time.